JP, welcome to the Transition Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming, man. It's you're a blessing in disguise. I can't believe I met you at Tinta through my little brother Christopher, and 3 weeks later, you're here. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I was scared of your brother since I was a kid in AAU basketball, watching this monster just absolutely annihilate all of us Cubans on the basketball court.
Is that where you met Christopher?
Yeah, playing basketball. I played all three sports growing up.
Yeah, so did I.
And so
Kids should do that nowadays more often.
I'm 100%. They should play as many sports as they can, actually. I'm not on that whole you got to specialize thing. But yeah, so your brother, though, was like, dude, this guy was LeBron James. For the Cuban kids on the basketball court, are you kidding me?
It's hard to find a 6'8" Cuban.
No, dude, this guy was unbelievable. And he walked into the restaurant, and I was like, oh, crap.
I haven't seen this guy in a long time.
Take me back to the old days.
Yeah, man. So again, thank you for coming on. So tell us a little bit about JP. Where'd JP go to elementary school? Where'd you go to middle school? Where'd you go to high school? A little bit about your background in Miami.
So parents born in Cuba.
Okay.
My sister was the first one born in the United States. She's older than me, and then me. And then I went to Olympia Heights. I grew up, and I guess it would be considered the Westchester area, 107th and Bird Road. Went to Olympia Heights. From there, I went to Riviera Middle School. You went
to Riviera.
Yeah, Riviera Middle School.
Keeping it real.
Yeah. You learn a lot of things in middle school early.
Especially in the public school system. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's different, man.
It's very, well, I learned that even more. So I went from Riviera to South Miami High School, out of district. But you know how all that works in Miami for sports. You can find your ways to get to different schools. So I went to South Miami. And where I noticed the biggest difference is when I went to Westminster Christian. Like, you realize public school system, you see everything under the sun. And then I went to Westminster, and I was like, this is country club, and I was a big fan of it. I liked it.
So I went to Kinloch Park Elementary. I grew up on Flagler in Northwest 3rd Street. Prior to that, I did go to St. Michael's as well. So I had a little bit of both. And then I went to Gables and then Cole Park. But my kids now go to Westminster. And I'll be honest with you, when we were shopping around for schools, we went to two different schools, and I walked into Westminster, and this is gonna sound a little fruity, but I left. My eyes got watery. I told my wife, I mean, there's a light in this school. I mean, I had never seen an elementary school like that ever. I mean, I never experienced that, and then to be able to have the blessing to put my kids there has been really cool. I mean, to me, it's the best investment that I've personally made. I'm a big believer in environment, man. Huge.
Well, honestly, that was a big reason that I loved Westminster so much, because it was such a nice environment. It was kind of funny because, I couldn't afford it at that sense, and I got a little help. But, I remember my first day driving into Westminster. I had an 88 Blazer, public school kid. I had 212s in the back, and I drive into this parking, lot, and it's like Mercedes, Lexus, and I'm like, here's my beat up 88 Blazer 2-door red, so you can't miss it. And so it was one of those things I'll never forget. The first day of school, I was like, man, I'm definitely in a different atmosphere. But you're right. You walk around, and there's a magic to that place, and I know it's gotten even better. They've continued to do a great job. I know sports-wise, they've done good. Emil Castellanos is probably one of my favorite guys that I've ever been around.
He's doing a great job with the program, man.
But it's, you know what? It is a blessing, because when you do have an opportunity to go to something like that and you see the difference. I mean, I was in South Miami where I just told this story today. There was a kid who tried to hire a hitman to kill somebody in the school, and thankfully that they had hired a hitman who was an off-duty cop. Wow. And so that's how they got caught. But I mean, there was also a huge Cuban versus blacks war at a time that I was in school. You're put in a situation, there's pros and cons. I think there's pros and cons. I knew a lot about what was going on probably before I needed to.
Well, I mean, look, the public school system has set me up personally for I'm a street guy in reality. I mean, one of my biggest strengths when it comes to quote unquote business is that I can read people. I know my surroundings. I know that I know the environment that I'm in. I'm able to recognize that immediately versus like I didn't grow up in a bubble, you know? As a parent, it's difficult because I feel like my kids are in a very, I don't want to call it a bubble. People use that word, but they're in a very healthy environment. But because of sports, my son plays soccer, my daughter dances, she plays soccer as well, plays tennis. My son also does jiu-jitsu now. I get to also take him out of that environment and teach him to be with kids who aren't as privileged, more, you know, very humble beginnings and really get to be, I create a well-balanced child, if that makes any sense, you know? And sports did that for me. I mean, JP, I mean, we played with guys in high school whose parents were absolutely loaded. And I was a guy that my grandma was getting me there and, you know, I was hoping she didn't get a flat tire on the way to the boys club, you know? So it really, I think the beauty is the balance.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, shoot, your grandmother, I used to call my grandmother 1-800-COLLECT from school to say, you have a call from, and I'd say, Abuela, recójame. Because then that's how I would get across for her to come and pick me up. And I'd have, thankfully, coaches and parents that my parents divorced. And so I have them come and pick me up to take me to practice and do these things. So, I mean, I think all of our journeys happen for a reason. And so I was thankful that I went through some of the stuff and got to see some of the stuff. But then it also allowed me to appreciate, because I do think there's a beauty in being able to protect from certain things.
No doubt, man.
And if you're enabled to do it, it's a good thing, because it's this day and age. When we were coming up, we didn't have the world at our hands. We didn't have social media. We didn't have all these different things that I think kids have to. It's a tougher way to come up now, I believe, than what it. You know, back in the days, I get home, you do your homework, you're playing outside, and you're back till dark, and that's it.
I would play every single day basketball at Kenlock Park for the most part till 8 o'clock at night. I'd come back home, and I would also ride my bike to Pascual on Grape and 37th Avenue. That was normal. You know, I took the bus to South Beach. I don't know that my kids will ever understand that. And back then you could do that, you know? Like South Beach was like us in high school, we were on the beach, you know, it wasn't like the environment that's there today, man. Right now obviously Miami has become a city where there's a lot of party and drugs and, you know, the way that we're being promoted, I don't think really helps us who have pioneered this city, especially our Cuban parents who came from Cuba and ran from communism and worked their butts off. I mean, we become this, we're known for the parties and the drugs and the alcohol. And I think Miami has more to offer than that. I know it does.
Well, no, for sure. And if you think about it, you know, you go in history, it's always been that in a sense. But I think now it's just because people don't put what regular life looks like on social media. Mm-hmm. You know, there's
it's all fictitious.
It's literally the bottom of the barrel, what you're going to see, like crimes, because that makes it shock value. And then you're going to see the person that's on Palm Island with the Ferrari taking a picture and all these different things. You don't see. Listen, this is the truth and the honesty. I left Miami because I disliked it so much. When I signed professionally after University of Tennessee, I lived here for an off season, bought a place in Brickell Key, and I lived here one off season, and I was like, get me out of this place. Because I was like,
You grew, man.
Well, it's just people dealing with there was such a selfish feeling in the city of like status and like, what do you do? What can you do for me? And I was never that kind of person. And so I left. And then now that I've come back, I actually see the better side of Miami. Is that stuff still there? Yes, it's in every city. I've been to a lot of cities. There's a lot of bad in every city in the sense of dealing with people, but there's also, you know, there's a lot of good in the city. And now I've been able to open my eyes and kind of go, I'm not going to look at it in a negative aspect and go like, this stinks, these people stink. You know, it's like, oh crap, there's a lot of benefits to living in Miami, being around these kind of people. So, you know, you learn and you change your point of view. Miami's been one of those for me.
Yeah. No, and through my experience in college as well, and traveling in the minor leagues and visiting different states, you do realize, like, I felt like us kids that got to play baseball and travel the country, we became a little bit more cultured, a little more obviously more Americanized. And when you come back to Miami, and reality is, it's like a country within the United States. I mean, it really is.
It is.
Man. I mean, but you know, this is home for us, and you know, I feel a responsibility as well to try to give back to the city. It's just, it becomes difficult when it's funny, like when you bring in a bunch of different cultures from all over the world, and you try to bring in diversity. It's challenging, man. You bring in different sorts of mindsets, and how do you create one type? You know, how do you the American pride? Like, for instance, we go to Georgia every 4th of July. There's a place out there that I love called Reynolds Plantation, and it's a true American barbecue lake party. Right, I mean, and you feel American, you feel the love, and I don't feel that here sometimes.
I mean, listen, at the end,
and I hate to say that, man, but
it's true though,
and I don't know why.
But my parents, my family, they even tell me, like, man, listen, we came here for the opportunity to live free, and we are so indebted to this country that we can't. I mean, what you come from in Cuba, I was even Raisel Iglesias, the closer with the Reds, I was talking to him. We were talking yesterday, and we were talking about, dude, when Cuban players come over from over there to defect, and they're making millions, and you ask why this guy's going off the Richter scale, it's because, dude, literally their entire life, they were like, hey, you can have 1 egg or 2 eggs this week. And then you come here and you go into a building and you're like, you can buy it. You have $50 million. You can do whatever you want. So
and they're throwing stuff at you.
Well, but you get to come to a country that allows that, right? That allows you to be who you are, to live free. And I think sometimes with the way the world is now, you kind of forget that. My parents were always very big on, like, we work hard. We like that we get to go to work. You work as hard as you want. You can make money. But I was going to say too is growing up in Miami, there's pros and cons, because I'm sure you got this. Anywhere you go, it's like you're a Miami boy. You people can tell. Yeah. But I think that,
or you have an accent. I'm like,
but really? there's a pro to that, in the sense of the aura, because of how we grew up in this. You had to grow up with savviness, which I think helps in business and all these different things. Because, and here's where we go back to Miami being the pros and cons. I think that's a pro of we can go into a situation of a locker room and be able to talk English, talk Spanish, kind of interact with everybody, as opposed to a lot of these people didn't. And so we just had a confidence about walking into a room, which is why I think the whole, hey, you're a Miami boy came about, which I used to kind of be like, well, now I kind of see the pros of it.
Why? So Westminster, you graduate, you go to Tennessee. What was that like?
Well, culture shock. I got drafted out of high school, turned it down, went to Tennessee. And
what round out of high school?
17th. Okay. And they offered me...
I was a 16th round draft pick.
They offered me good money, and it didn't work out, which I'm thankful for. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Tennessee, and that's when I was like, wait a second. I can put my blinker on when I'm driving and the person next to me doesn't speed up. I can walk into a restaurant, and I will open the door, or I'm walking to it, and the person with the door is not going to close it. They're going to keep it open so that I can get into it. And I was like...
You sound like Javi Herrera. Well, remember when Javi was here?
I was like, dang, dude, this is nice. Like, all right, you can take that guard down, because...
By the way, that's healthy.
That's a phenomenal thing.
That's normal.
Oh, believe me. It's a great thing.
You should open a door for an elderly or a woman.
It's just being, at the end of the day,
having manners.
Yeah, and unselfish. I think it's being selfless. You have to be able to, there's sometimes, it's prevalent here where a lot of people are on their own program and can care less, as opposed to, like, it's not always just about me, and let's do what's right. So that's one thing that I noticed in Tennessee. I was like, man, people are respectful, and they handle things different.
And how was the baseball program? I mean, Javi was a big fan of it.
All right, so Javi, this is how it all happens. Like, comes to life, right? Here. Yeah, like it's so Javi, who's a person that I looked up to as a kid in high school, watching the College World Series in 2001. Here's a freshman from Gulliver, catcher, playing in the coolest stage, because as a kid, I wanted to play in the big leagues. I watched the College World Series religiously. I thought it was one of the coolest.
I still do. Who doesn't?
Well, no, yeah, because it honestly,
I'm dying to take my son. I've never if I never went.
It's the purity of the game. It's really what it comes down to. It's such a good game, and so I watched Tennessee. Well, later in my career in high school, Tennessee's interested, and I'm like, what? Tennessee's interested. Javi was a player that I looked up to as a catcher from Miami. I was like, man, this is cool. So I went to Tennessee big in part because Javi Herrera went there, so much so that when I got there, he wore number 44 and I wore number 44 because of it.
Wow. Man, props to you, Javi, if you're listening. That's awesome. So how did you guys do in Tennessee when you were there?
So his freshman year, crazy. His freshman year, they went to the College World Series and never went again after that until my freshman year.
So you were in the College
World Series? So my freshman year, we go to the College World Series.
Did you ball out?
It was, you know what? We went 0-2. We were the first team on the plane back. But listen, what was cool is I always wanted to hit a home run in Rosenblatt, and I did in the College World Series. So I think I went
played at Rosenblatt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now they play
at Ameritrade.
Yeah.
Now, so I played and so what's crazy, I was there for 2 games. I think I got maybe 2 hits. I didn't hit well, but I was like, every at-bat, I think I didn't hit well because I wanted to go deep. I wanted to rattle the seats in Rosenblatt. So I did against Arizona State. But on that team, we had 4 major leaguers, which was Chase Headley was our third baseman, and he was a long time big leaguer and did really well. Luke Hochaver was our ace, who was the first pick overall in the draft and won the World Series. He was the winning pitcher of 2015 World Series for the Royals. Julio Borbon played for the Texas Rangers. He was a big leaguer. I was a big leaguer. And then another first round pick that was probably the best player that never made it because he got into some off the field issues was this guy Eli Ord. So we had I think in that team we had 5 first round picks.
What?
1 second rounder, which was Chase Headley, another second rounder, which was Sean Watson, who's a Miami boy who went to Gulliver. So our team was
loaded,
unbelievable. And then after that, my sophomore and junior year, we just never could compete the same. But my freshman year was pretty special.
And your freshman year in college is always the best, man.
It's fun.
Always the best year, the funnest year. You're in school, you're alone. The parties, the everything. It's true, man.
You can finally. That was people always ask, like, why didn't you stay in Miami? Because Jim Morris used to give me crap about leaving. And I was like, I mean, to be honest, if I'm sitting at a bar, I don't want to go, hey, you want to come back to my house where my mom and my sister live? I wanted to get away and be a man. I wanted to grow, and so that was Tennessee for me.
Yeah, man, I agree. I went to JUCO in Kansas, and that was the funnest thing in the world. And then I came back home to play baseball at FIU. And it was fun, but then, the night's over and I'm like, all right, go back home. And it's just like, it takes away the whole college experience. So many times I tried to find my buddies who were from out of state and stay in the dorm or sneak in,
Yeah.
And then that was like the best night in the world.
It was, dude. But
I played baseball at Dodge City, in Kansas.
Dodge City, but
I let everybody know, which is super fun.
But it is though, because you're on your own. And you have to make your own schedule pretty much. Other than when you go home, there's no one. You're not going to your mom calling you at 5 a.m. going, you haven't gone home yet. ¿Dónde está?
I know.
You're like,
parents, oye, ¿dónde tú estás? ¿Tienes juego mañana?
Yeah. No, you call in the morning still half drunk from the night before, and you're like, hey, everything's good, all right. I'm going to the field. Talk to you later. Bam. And
I know.
But it was a growth. I think it's fun to be able to kind of.
And be on your own.
Yeah, spread your wings a little bit. Go out there and I tell people all the time, leave sorry University of Miami, sorry FIU.
I get it.
I tell people,
with you too. Get
leave,
out of here,
dude.
Man. Leave and
for all the other people, they didn't come back down here, but leave, go away for college.
I mean, you grow, and like you said, you become a man, dude. You evolve. You evolve. So Tennessee. You get drafted by the Blue Jays. What round was that?
First round.
First round.
Yeah.
How was minor leagues? How long were you in the minor leagues, by the way?
I wasn't there for a long time, but I
brag away, buddy.
no, it's honestly
You're talking to a guy who had a bunch of red roof ins and
no. Well, listen,
Golden Corral.
I did have it pretty easy, but I will tell you, I did put up like
it's a testament to your talent.
So I signed out of college. The first 2 summers I had played on the USA team, my freshman sophomore year with Woodbat, and that had done very well, which had set me up. So that I had already had the confidence, like, hey, Woodbat, I can still juice balls. I had power, all this stuff. So I signed out of college my junior year, and go to short season. Well, short season, we play half that year, but that's kind of more just to get the feel of pro ball. Yeah. We ended up winning the league that year. Had decent.
Where were you in short season?
Auburn, New York. Which the New York Penn League.
I was in the Northwest League. I was on the other side.
Yeah, New York Penn League, which talk about going from the SEC to a high school field, a shock. I'm like, wait a second. I thought I was supposed to get better in pro ball. So that was that year. So my first full season, I started in high A, which is here in the state league, so Dunedin. And I was there for 2 months, 2.5 months, made the all-star team, and I was leading in every offensive category pretty much in the state league. So after the All-Star game, they sent me up to AA. So that was New Hampshire, Eastern League, Fisher Cats. So then I played the second half there and did really well as well. And so my first full year, I ended up hitting like 298 with, I think, 27 home runs and 105 RBIs. My first pro ball season.
You put up some nasty numbers.
So, and as a catcher. So that was...
I know, I was about to say, that's icing on the cake.
So when I say that I went through the minor leagues quick, I did, but I didn't just like, hey, you're a first round pick, let's move you. I was doing what I needed to do. So that was my first full season. Now my second full year, I go to spring training and I go to the fall league and I do really well in the fall league. So I get to spring training that next year and they're like, listen, we're going to start you in AAA. At the All-Star break, we're going to call you up and groom you to be our starting catcher in 2010. So I got drafted 2007, 2008 was my first year, 2009, this is now what we're talking about. And so what do? I go to the AAA, and this is Las Vegas, and I try to be like 7 hits and 3 at-bats every time because they just wiggled the carrot in front of my face. Like, hey, dude, All-Star break, you're going to be in the big league. So I tried to make sure, like, hey, I was so focused on Toronto and not in Las Vegas that halfway during the year, I sucked to the point where they're like, hey, listen, you're not ready. I was hitting like 210 in my first half. And so I didn't get called up. So I had to finish that year, which I ended up finishing strong. I hit 230, but I had 21 home runs still and drove in some runs. But I learned a lot that year because I was so focused on where I wasn't that I sucked at where I was.
You were way ahead of in other words, you weren't in the present moment.
No, I wasn't in the present moment. And I didn't, and this is me
and
still.
It's tough, man, when you're young and they're telling you, they're pretty much guaranteeing you, hey, we're gonna prep you to become our big league catcher. You're like, the hell with this shit. I just can't wait for months to go by.
And it's tough when you're 21 in Las Vegas with a first round check in the bank, and you're like, this is how stupid I was in the sense of how I thought of things. I was like, man, if I gamble and I gamble at a high rate, I can get my room comped. And so if I stay at the hotels while I'm playing, then I'll get my room comped. And then so I'll just keep a bag when I'm on the road. You obviously just take your bag. And then when I'm here, I have my bag. And so I did that. So you learn this quick. When you gamble, you make a lot of friends with hosts and different things. And then you make a lot of friends at parties. And then so you end up really not ever having to pay for anything because of how hard I was going off the field. And not drugs. Not drugs or anything, but I was playing blackjack at a high level, and really? I was drinking as much as anybody could possibly drink and still be playing the following day. Every night, pretty much. It was crazy. So much so that the next year, they told me I was going back to AAA, and I told our farm director, I was like, if you send me back to AAA,
I want to release?
No, I'm going to die. I was like, send me to AA. I'd rather go back to AA and then call me up from AA. I was like, please don't send me back to Vegas. I will die.
So did the gambling get you a little bit?
No, I wasn't. It wasn't more. I just enjoyed gambling, honestly, because I don't have an addictive in the sense of personality, in the sense of I can go and gamble hard, but as I would drink, you're drinking, they give you your drinks for free, you're gambling. And then I got to a point where I was like, all right, I would always say, this is what I'm playing at, if I lose this, I'm done. But I would get to a point. You had
the discipline to walk away from the table?
And I would leave, because then I just knew, because for me, it was more, that was my pregame. Because then I was going to a club or a bar where I knew the person that kind of ran it, and then I was just going to sit there and party. And so that was almost became like my warm-up to go out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. AAA team in Vegas. That's probably that probably isn't a good combination.
Dude, I saw...
For a 21-year-old kid who...
I saw our umpires at rehab before a game one time. Like the pool party. Because of course I'm jacked up too, so I'm going to Hard Rock pool party before, because then at a certain time during the year, you only get 7:00 starts because it's so hot in Vegas. Yeah. So Saturday and Sunday, what normal people do in Vegas is they're going to these pool parties. So I'm like, I'm in. So I would go to these pool parties. I was not drinking, but I would go to these pool parties and hang out.
At night?
Yeah, play at night, but one time I saw the umpires. I'm looking over at a cabana and they're getting after it. And I'm like, these SOBs. And I'm like, I went and made sure to go and talk to them because I was like, if you mess up a call tonight, I will be all over you. But I knew that as soon as they saw me that they were going to, my strike zone was going to be the size of a penny that night because they were not going to mess with me because I saw what they were doing.
That's crazy, man. So I still got to laugh, dude. You threw a little curve on me. I like that one. So Vegas, AAA, you end up the year strong. Did you go back to AA like you requested?
No, I went back to AAA.
So what did you do then? How did you pivot there?
So they responded to me like, hey, you have to learn and figure out how to make it work out there because it is what it is. And so I went back to AAA and I struggled at the beginning again. And then there was one time in Round Rock, I'll never forget this. I went to the cage with the hitting coach, Chad Mottola, who's now the hitting coach for the Tampa Bay Rays. And we went to work, and I found something that worked. And you know how this is. Like, sometimes something clicks, and it's on. It's on. Right? And that night I went 4 for 4 with 2 home runs. And for 2 months, I hit over 400 and had like over 10 home runs for that month. And so now was like, all right, my mindset had changed to I was worried about Toronto to every night on this field that I step on, I'm going to be the best player. And that's it. I would round the bases. I would get to games, managers, umpires of other teams, like managers of other teams would be like, hey dude, why are you still here? At the All-Star break that year, I was hitting 325 with 25 home runs at the All-Star break. And I used to tell them, I don't know why I'm still here, but I'm going to hit 50 home runs and I'm going to be the MVP of this league. And that's how my mindset has switched, because if you would have told me that prior to the year before, I would have been like, well, you're right. I need to be in Toronto. Why am I not in Toronto? Blah, blah. And I stopped worrying about Toronto and I started worrying about, I'm on this field. I'm going to kick ass every single day on this field that I'm in. And I'm not, and that's where that present moment was so huge, because then I was really taking advantage of every moment that I got in AAA.
No, and that's, I go back, that mindset starts as a little kid, indirectly, when you constantly have to, one of the things that I think athletes do at a young age is they learn how to adjust fast. Right, life makes you do that. The field makes you do that. Anticipation, and shame on me once, but not shame me twice. And thank God that you pivoted quick and you were aware of it and you said, okay, if I do this, that's how I'm going to get there. But that mindset, I don't think is average. You know what I'm saying? The average person doesn't understand that and have the ability to really make that shift so fast. So then you get caught up.
Yeah. So one morning we're back in Vegas, and so at this time I had it was August 4th maybe, around there, and I had close to 30 home runs already. I was leading all of minor leagues in home runs, like killing it. But the catcher for the Blue Jays was an all-star, John Buck, who ended up coming to Miami after his time with Toronto. But he was an all-star that year, so that he was blocking my thing. So one morning they called me, and my manager was like, "Hey, you're not playing this today." And I was like, "Why am I not playing?" Like, I used to get pissed. I was not one of these guys that, like, even as a catcher, like, if I'm not in the lineup, dude, I'd knock on the manager's door, like, "Why am I not playing?" Which eventually changed, and we'll talk about that. We'll get to that, but eventually changed. But I was like, "Why am I not playing?" So he's like, "Listen, you got to go to Toronto." And I was like, "Oh, crap. All right, it's happening." So John Buck had got hit with a foul ball, and he couldn't play because he had to get stitches on his finger. So, called my mom, crying, you're fired up.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to eat it was a Fleming's, I want to say, that was in... It was a Fleming's. It was a Morton's, excuse me. A Morton's in Vegas. And I went to eat for lunch because I was like, I'm a big leaguer now, so I can go to Morton's for lunch, right? So I got lunch there, and then I was on my way to Toronto and got to Toronto. And it was... people will always question me, like, were you nervous? And honestly, I was not nervous. I was so ready for the next challenge because I had done so well in AAA that when I got to Toronto, it was like, finally I get to compete against the next level, because this level I had already checked the mark, and so, like, I wanted the opportunity to compete at
the highest level.
And so that's I started. That's the reason why my first game, I had the game that I had, was because when I got to that game, I was like, dude.
When you first put on the uniform, what were you thinking, JP?
Honestly, I was thinking about my grandmother, because my grandmother's my mom's mom, and she's the one that took care of me. She's the one that I was 1-800 calling and collect.
Yeah.
And she had always wanted me to watch me play in the big leagues. You know how, Cuban grandparents, grandparents in general, but, and so that was like the biggest thing for me, was like, she wasn't going to be able to watch it. So it was like a beautiful thing, but it was like, man, my grandmother. And so putting on the uniform, obviously you see your name and you're like, holy crap, dude.
I did this.
Yeah. I'm in the big leagues. And then I think we're wired to kind of,
and then it's just another day.
Yeah. And people were like, oh my gosh. And it's like, nah, the field's the same size. The same dimensions.
There's a guy throwing a ball. I hold a bat.
Plate's the same size, and so the anthem was a surreal moment for me that day. And the dumbest thing that I was like worried about, if I was anything on that opening day, was we're home, so I was like, do not drop the first pitch of this game. That's the one thing that I was, as dumb as it is, like the easiest thing, like, you used to call it throwing a fastball, set up down the middle, throw first pitch of the game. And I was legitimately like, don't drop this, don't drop this, don't drop this, don't drop this. Bam, caught it. And then it was like, I was ready to go.
Came down.
Mm-hmm.
Bring up, do you have his first